Hi, everyone. Welcome to Spirit Switchboard. I'm your host, Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM out of New Orleans. Oh, UFO Paranormal Radio and United Public Radio Network. Sorry about that. Hi, Dixie. Thank you for being here. Oh, Heather, it's so good that you came. I think, is your Come to the Forest weekend this weekend? I hope it's beautiful. I hope it's beautiful for you. Thank you, Laura Lee, for popping in. I know, Heather, I know a lot of people are very excited. Hi, Heidi. Hi, Julie. Oh, this Sunday. I hope that you have a brilliant day. Laura Lee, so Laura Lee Potvin, who is a host here on the United Public Radio Network, she has the Angel Rock on Mondays and the Thing at the Foot of the Bed on Thursdays with her co-host, David Hansel. We had the opportunity to meet at the Lake Superior Paracon, and it was so much fun. It was so fun to get to hang out, and we are going to be on the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche next Wednesday, so we'll be together again chatting, which will be a lot of fun. Tomorrow night is the Love Life Afterlife at the Princess Avenue Playhouse in St. Thomas, and I'm really excited for that too. So, we'll get to talk about it next week. I would like to, let's just see what that's all about. Hi, Joanne. Happy Friday to you too. Hi, James. Wizard Radio FM, everybody take a follow on YouTube. James pops in quite a bit to the conversation. So I'd like to introduce, I'm very excited about this conversation. Very excited about the conversation that we're going to have today. So I'm going to just give you our guest bio. Maureen J. St.Germain is the founder of the Germain Mystery School, the Ascension Institute Mystery School, and the Akashic Records International. An internationally recognized teacher and intuitive, she's also the creator of more than 30 guided meditation CDs, now available on the app Illuminate, which we'll get to talk about today too, which I'm excited about. She's the author of 8 books, including Waking Up in 5D. She lives near Sedona, Arizona, and offers workshops worldwide. And she is here to talk about living your best 5D life, her new book that just came out in September. Please welcome Maureen to the show.
Hi, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. There were so many people when I was sharing that I had extended the invitation for you to come on the show that were very excited, who have followed your videos and your ascension and conscious awareness work for so long that they were very excited to be able to participate in the chat and have you here today. Yeah, Heidi is one of them.
Excellent.
Heidi Gohl is just saying hi from Boulder. Michelle Plummer, thank you for being here, Michelle. Thank you, Dixie. One of the, if you could, for the people that are just meeting you for the first time, just take us right back. You were very fortunate that you, there are so many things. And now I'm going to go scroll on sideways, and I'll try to not go scroll on sideways, but it might happen. I was excited about how much our stories are somewhat similar for children, okay. Farming community, raise our children for a while and work, and then step into doing this work. And I think that, when we step in full time and what that feels like for us and how we inspire other people by living it. It's a 24/7 beautiful flow when we're in that space, and just by being who we are, we're inspiring other people to step into that as well too. Could you share your beginnings, how you were supported within your family structure? Like this was normal for you in your home growing up?
Yes, it was. I was very
Beautiful is
fortunate.
that?
My father and mother were Catholic, and my father was really a devoted Catholic. And my mother was a good Catholic, but she was also very plugged in. And so also was my dad. My mother was given information on where my father was when he was a prisoner of war. And she was playing with a Ouija board, and she knew better. But on the Ouija board, it spelled out in kilometers. And of course, back then, you and I wouldn't use kilometers. So she flipped the board, and that was that. But she at least knew he was alive, and that was a big relief to her. Because, once you get picked up, you're incommunicado until they liberate your camp. My father was a medic, and he was helping someone off the field, someone who had been injured, and they both were captured.
Wow.
So, it was fairly normal at my house for an intuitive idea to be shared. And not many people know this. Now it's going to go really big. I was a majorette in high school, but my farm family didn't believe in baton lessons. When I was a 5th or 6th grader, it was out of the question. It wasn't even discussed. And they announced that they were going to have tryouts in May, and this was in January of my freshman year. And I got up all my courage, and I came home with a real clear intent that I was going to talk my mother into letting me take lessons and try out. And I came in the house. She's standing there in the kitchen, and she looked at me and she said, I've been thinking all day, if you still want to take baton lessons, it'd be okay with me.
Wow.
So and me being, all in, and you can appreciate this, Carolyn, because when you have a big family, when you have a lot of responsibility, you learn how to manage your time in a way where you get a lot done. And so same there, I really, really practiced every night for hours and hours and hours after I did my farm stuff. And there were 4 other girls that tried out. So 5 girls tried out for one slot that was open, and all of them had been taking lessons since 5th grade. And I got in. I made it on the team and was assistant head majorette the following year, and then head majorette the following year. And then I even was a majorette in college. And I loved this. In fact, I still have a little baton. So anyway, it's my history is that I just kind of followed what I was called to do. I was very fortunate that I had support from my parents, and they didn't encourage me to be this way, but they didn't discourage me. They didn't make fun of me. They were okay with it. That was part of our life. So I can remember as a 20-something telling my father about a spirit guide that I was working with. And he said, honey, it's okay to tell me, but don't tell anybody else.
Yes.
So, being protective.
Yes. Yeah.
But allowing, not having any issue whatsoever. So anyway, I was very fortunate in that regard. And so I was a little bit, I'll use the word different, growing up. And I read the Casey material, There's a River, when I was 16 or 17. So I was still in high school when I read about Casey. And I'm sure it was my mother who told me about him. And then that made me want to go read the book. So, I've been around a lot of spiritual education, windows of opportunity that I've then used and taken to the next level. So more recently, for about 20 years, I traveled and taught the Merkaba all over the world and developed a training that is still used today. I have it on my website as a online class, pre-recorded. And then that work led me to doing the Ascension work, the 5D work. So and along the way, I started making meditations. And because I was affiliated with the KC material for so long, I was invited to get a freebie one year where I could get an analysis of my soul's plan based on my birthday, I think. I'm not sure now what it was, my birthday or my astrology or my name. Anyway, they came back with, you should make guided meditations. And at that point, I already had like 5 of them, out there in the public, for people to use. So the guided meditations are all things that I wanted for me. And that's basically how I started working. Everything that I created was initially for me. And over time, I was guided to make these things available to the public.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes hard to explain to people what that feeling of alignment is when it's your normal, but it flows. Everything flows, and it feels expansive, even if it's challenging. Even if it's something that's hard, it will flow. If it's in alignment. There is some things I would like to share that falls in line with what you shared with us. I think my daughter was about 8, and she's 27 now, and she wanted to take a dance class, and I didn't tap into it first. I'm like, sure, if this is what you want to do, let's give it a go. But the timing was horrible. Like, it was horrible. It didn't matter what we did. We were always going to be late. The timing of that was so challenging. And she would get embarrassed and lash out. And it wasn't smooth. And I stopped her one day and I said, I need you to put your hand over your heart, take a deep breath in, and I want you to feel into it. Does this feel like the right class for you? And so she did it. She blessed her little heart. She's like, took this big breath, and she got grounded, and she's like, oh, you knew it was going to tell me no, that it wasn't the right one for me. And I said, I just needed you to feel okay. And I think, that's part of this, right? Is it gives you the confidence to make choices. It makes you feel empowered. You don't give your power away when you are tapped in all of the time. You have that confidence. And that same year we had moved and she was in a new school, and it was right before Christmas. It was a very Catholic area, but it was a public school. And they were talking about traditions for Christmas and stuff like that. And they asked Brooklyn what her traditions were. And she said that she was pagan. And then she came home crying because she said, everybody's going to, not invite me to birthday parties because everybody's Catholic. Why did you put me in a Catholic school? It was like, why did you say that you were pagan? And she said, but we do spirit guides and we do these full moon meditations and we do these things. And it was what she could wrap her head around as far as a label to who she was or what our in-house. So again, it was about discernment, learning that discernment about where it feels comfortable to share what your practices are and at what age and, all of that kind of stuff. And there's not really a label to it, right? It's not.
No, there's not. I remember when one of my kids was in the military and he called me and said, Mom, what religion are we?
Right. It isn't.
It isn't. Exactly.
It's just being.
Yeah. I actually said to him, the closest thing I can give you is Catholic because we believe in the saints and the angels. So start there.
Yes.
I was very interested in finding ways that would allow them to fit in. And I actually sent my kids to Catholic schools instead of public school because the education was so much better. And I remember, this is really funny, my husband at the time said, well, you were Catholic at one time. Why don't you just say you're Catholic? And I said, because that would be telling a lie. And how can I send them to a Catholic school and lie about it? That doesn't compute for me.
Yeah.
So, we were paying like $5,000 or $6,000 a year for them to go to this Catholic school because they were non-Catholic. They had to pay the non-Catholic rate. And, it was tough. It was really, really tough.
And if everything is a vibration, and if we are all interconnected, thoughts, words, deeds, actions, matter, ripples out, clear, cancel, delete if it's a negative one that you're tossing out there. But when you tell a lie, it's constrictive right away. Like,
right.
You're already setting something in motion to come back at you.
This is something that's very important in 5D. Even a white lie, even a fib, even an exaggeration causes us to tell the universe there's not enough. There's not enough love. There's not enough understanding. There's not enough fairness, whatever it is. And the fear that we face if we try to cover it is real and tangible. And I can remember at one point being unemployed and filing for unemployment. And back in the day, when everybody had like a little shackly business or a little side business of some sort, even if you were collecting unemployment, you had to report that. And that might disqualify you from getting your unemployment benefit, or it might reduce your unemployment benefit. Anyway, I was already teaching my seminars, but I had been working as a lobbyist, and I had recorded all my hours because it was required by law, so I could prove that I was putting in close to 80 hours every week just on my day job. And when I went to the altar, I said to the Ascended Master El, look, I'm not going to lie. If you can figure out a way for me to get the unemployment, if that's a way to support me, great, I'll accept it. But I'm not going to make up a story that this isn't happening. And so I reported it. And the examiner said, you know what? You're working so many hours at your day job. We're not even going to count this. And literally my seminar business picked up right after that, so much so that with unemployment and the seminar business, I was back at my old wage.
Yeah,
and
Spirit
has a really nice way of working with you,
right? And it's about it's the trust. It's the trust. If you're asking Spirit, they're presenting something to you, and you act on it. It's surrendering to that process and just trusting, and letting go of fear. It's letting go of fear. But do you find that a lot of people if they come to you, are they already in that process? Because I find a lot of people have to have the crisis and then move into looking for the tools. Like, is there a gentler way for people to move into ascension?
Yes,
besides hitting that note, I'm maybe not articulating that well.
So the first thing is stepping out of fear. So you move into fearlessness, and fearlessness is showing up in the kids. And when you have an offspring that is fearless, they're very likely an ascended master, because they know on the inner who they are and where they're at. And so their abilities, they're like Superman testing the waters. They might do extreme things, and you think, what's the matter with this child? He's fearless. And then they're off lighting fires somewhere, doing wacky stuff. But for an individual, an adult, to gain their fearlessness, it's a simple matter of connecting with your higher self. And I ask my guides for a method to teach everyone how to connect with your higher self and get 100% accuracy. And it's on the app. The app is called Illuminate. It's free. This particular set of instructions is in the wisdom section, but the protocol consists of 3 things. And you practice this for 45 days. And at the end of the 45 days, you will have 100% accuracy. So now you can be checking in and asking, is it my highest and best good to take this action, to do this, to take this road or that road, to or I'm getting a hit to go this way and I never go that way to the store. And I feel like it's insistent. And then instead of trying to trust or not trust, you simply ask, is this my higher self telling me to take this alternate route? Yes. Okay, fine. And then later you discover there was a traffic jam or a pileup of some sort, and you avoided it because you were on the alternate route. And so during your practice period,
encouraging people to let go of dissecting it too. There may not be an accident at all, but you were guided and trusted it. Like, you don't need to dissect it, right?
That's one of the 3 rules. 3 rules are, number 1, you ask your higher self and you set it up. So you ask your higher self in a meditation for your symbols or signals. Yes, no, and neutral. Neutral is not maybe, by the way. So some people see a color, some people see a shape, some people hear a sound or have a feeling in their body, like an itchy ear or a itch on their shoulder. You figure out what your symbols are, and you don't tell your higher self your symbols. You let them float in.
Yes.
And if they're subtle, you just keep asking for them to get stronger and stronger. So for 45 days, you ask unimportant, insignificant questions that you are willing to follow through on. So rule number 1, lots of questions about stuff you don't care about. Rule number 2, you must follow through if you ask. And rule number 3 is you set aside all your other divination tools. So it's really easy, really simple.
Yes.
And why do you set aside your divination tools? And it isn't because a pendulum's bad or muscle testing isn't accurate. It's so that you're not trying to learn French and German at the same time. It's simply a matter of a protocol that you're acquiring as a skill. And what I can tell you is the people who put the effort in, and it's really kind of fun because you can be asking everybody, ask me, if we should go to this restaurant or that restaurant when it's time. You don't tell them at the moment, but you ask them. And then you ask your higher self and you go with what you get. Sometimes, if you're not a pizza parlor person, you might get told to go to the pizza parlor. And then you meet someone you've been looking for. Or you ask about one thing and your higher self tells you, no, go do this. And you don't want to, but it's your higher self. So you do it anyway. And then you have all kinds of cool things happen as a result. And this is the beauty of working with your higher self. You are not giving up your free will. Your higher self is not running the show. You are simply using your higher self as a more evolved version of you that's fully plugged into the reality and everything you care about. And it knows, like a really good personal assistant, that whatever it is that you care about in the world today, they're going to find ways to link those things with what you're asking about now. And it is astounding, the amazing things that can happen. Just astounding.
It's there's a few different aspects to that as well too. Understanding that your intuition is not your higher self. Like, your higher self and intuition are separate entities. And when you do those practices, you are a little harder in a positive way. I want to make sure that I'm
a strict teacher.
Yeah. Because I'm like, try this for 2 weeks, and you are 45 days. Because I'm like, try for 2 weeks, because by the time that you do this,
2 weeks is enough, because 45 days you get new DNA. So your body is completely adapted.
Yeah.
So that's why I went for 45 days.
And you're right. You are absolutely right. For me, it's just, I think even in that 2 weeks was trying to get people to hook in, because you gain some confidence and clarity in what the voice sounds like, what the intuitive feel, or, however you're going to receive that information from your higher self. Right. And it's fun because the answers come before you're done asking the question.
Yes. A lot of times you get the answer before you get done asking. And then you can verify, say, is this my higher self that just answered me yes? I love to tell the story about the lady in China. We were in a hotel, and, the following day after learning the higher self connection, she stands up in class and said, why would my higher self lie to me? And I said, well, what did you ask? And she said, well, I'm a vegan, and I asked my higher self this morning if I should have meat. And my higher self said yes. Now you can hear everybody in the classroom laughing. And I said, well, I think you broke 2 of the 3 rules. And she just looked at me dumbfounded. I said, number one, you asked something you were not willing to do. And number two, after you've asked it, you didn't follow through. So the first rule is ask about stuff you don't care about. You were testing to see if your higher self was, quote, right. And that doesn't work that way, especially when you're in your practice period. And the thing that's so interesting is, even though I say over and over, your higher self is always right. If you will do this protocol, you will have 100% accuracy. It isn't until you decide to not do it that you really begin to understand, oh yeah, my higher self is always right. And that's worthwhile. So I tell everyone who says to me, well, after the 45 days, what if I don't want to follow my higher self? And I said, don't. You'll only do that once. It only takes once to figure out, oh gosh, I should have listened. And the thing is, we live in turbulent times. We live in what I will say nefarious times and tricky times. We're being bombarded energetically by all kinds of vibe that is not a match for who we are. And not everybody who's ready and willing to do this kind of work can find the time to meditate every day. But if you do the higher self practice and choose with your free will to follow your higher self's answer, you will land where you need to land. I was scheduled to be in New York City on 9/11. And when I went to buy my airline ticket, my guide said, you can't fly home on, they didn't actually say it that way, but it came in like, do not fly home on September 11th. So then I asked, well, what am I to do? We'll fly home on Monday, the day before.
Yeah, it's magical. Michelle Plummer's just sharing, I hear that told you so once in a while. Do you find not necessarily the told you so, but the reluctance is because of accountability. Like as soon as you understand that, okay, I'm asking my higher self like not emotionally charged questions, right? Just to get into it. So they're not
during your practice period, they're not emotionally charged questions. Yeah. But after your practice period, of course you can ask emotionally charged questions.
But the accountability in it, because you're co-creating in every moment. So then they're having the aha moment that all those things behind them that they co-created, they have some accountability. And it's sometimes hard for people to accept, right? They have to accept that they're co-creating.
Can you help me understand by giving me an example? I'm not sure I understand.
Well, like if they're not listening to something, or if they are having this, they are co-creating with the universe, their reality, their experience. So I'm asking the question, but I'm not going to answer and things fall apart. So I blame the universe for this because it's the universe's fault. They're not taking ownership that they are asking the question.
They're not asking their higher self.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Once you start to ask your higher self, it's a no-brainer. And, I can remember a time that I was in China coming home from, a 14-hour flight, and we were planning on taking this long drive. And my husband wanted to start extra early to do another adventure on top of the original adventure. And I said, no, I'm going to be flying all day, all night. I'm going to get a short night's sleep. I don't want to do that. That's outrageous to even suggest it. I was like annoyed that he would even make that suggestion.
Right.
And after I get done with my little drama, I said, but I'll check in. And if my higher self said to do it, I'll do it. And sure enough, my higher self said to do it. And I had so many yummy things happen out of that trip that would not have happened if I had said no. I can name like 5 things that were just super fantastic for me.
And it's giving yourself that moment to pause. Like I know that was as a recovering people pleaser, recovered, I would say, people pleaser. It was giving myself the permission to have those boundaries too. Let me do a check-in and I can get back to you. Like giving myself that moment to pause can be very hard depending on what your experiences were.
It's true. And we women are all kind of programmed that way. Because we want peace, we want family harmony, we want to get along. And we don't want to say no to our partner. You know, I still sometimes wish that I had a little more self-preservation, you know,
Mhm.
and it isn't until hindsight that I think I should have spoken up. And so for all of you who are listening, you know, no matter where you're at in your spiritual path, there are tests, there are opportunities to continue to grow and evolve. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, you know, living your best 5D life was the third of the series of three, from waking up in 5D, mastering your 5D self, and then living your best 5D life. And there's so many cool things in here. So many cool things. It's you know, amazing.
So it is. Oh, small copy. I have my copy, and I worry about showing people my books sometimes, though, even though I'm appreciative of books, but I love my books. I write in them, I highlight, I draw, I put my aha moments that happen when so I don't lend my books out. I don't borrow other people's books, but it is, and it's all presented. Everything that you present is in a way that is the stepping stones and tools for their tool belt, right? That they can come back to. And one of the things that I'd like you to talk about, where did I put it for you? Why and how leveling up is so important right now? Why is, like, understanding why that conscious awareness or making those steps for ascension is so important in this time.
The reason it's so important is because everybody is going 5D. And when we're all 5D, there's a different vibe on the planet. And it's easier for all of us then to be channeling our divine self. Excuse me. If we are channeling our divine self, we can begin to understand the matrix that we've been in. We can understand the programming that's been aimed at us to give us a desire to do things a certain way rather than to be the most evolved. So there are beings that would love for us to stop here and continue to emote and get, you know, give them loosh and give them the energy that they want. And we would just replay. But the thing is, each of us can evolve past all of that. And as we do, then we have more choice. Right now, many people think they only have a little bit of choice. They don't realize that they have all the choice. You know, it's like, I have to pick up my kids. Well, no, you don't have to. You want to. You choose to. It makes you happy to be on time. Those are real reasons. When I say I have to, I've given up my power to whoever will take it. So going back to what you were saying about being fully empowered and being, you know, true to yourself, the quality of life on Earth is such that we as a planet are ready to level up and out of this dimension and into a higher frequency that will give us a different kind of scenario, experiences, and so on. It's like changing from one game, like football, to soccer, or like Michael Jordan from basketball to baseball. You know, he said in one of the interviews one time that he realized that bulking up for baseball was going to ruin his basketball muscles. That we need to do because we're so accustomed to operating this way that it's hard to step into a new way of being and a new way of operating. But once you start to emote at the 5D level, what happens is the joy inside of you is so great that all the 5D responses are your new normal, and you don't even realize you're doing it. You don't realize that, I remember this morning I walked into the dry cleaners and I was practically singing. I was, so joyful. Good morning, and he just looked at me and he smiled. And I realized he wasn't used to having someone be that happy picking up their dry cleaning.
Yeah. Yeah. And the idea of going backwards it isn't even there. Like the to go backwards isn't even a possibility, but it's very clear when you are stepping forward consciously, more aware, the extremes of who is sleepwalking and who isn't.
Well, I think the idea of going backwards could be turned around and say it's more like being a teenager. Now we do stupid stuff and then we do something mature. And then we do something mature and follow it with something stupid. So it is like a sine wave. I used to think that once we became 5D, that we would stay there. And I very quickly learned that it's more like an up and down kind of environment, and that we can stay there longer with practices, with tools, with intention. So, we use those things.
Every once in a while, it just glitches just a tiny bit. So if there's a pause, I'm just waiting for that to unglitch. Do I glitch for you? Am I
yes,
glitching?
You're completely stopped. Mm-hmm.
Isn't that funny? I think it's just big energy. I think that it's that big energy. And when we're talking about dimensional shifts, one of the things that I had read in the book which is, I don't know, I got excited about reading it because it's something that I see and talk to people about as well too. When you are shifting and you're putting some of these tools in place, it is not always the pretty sunset picture with the see-through dress and it's all love and lighty. It's messy and uncomfortable and gritty. And allowing yourself to move through that, because those sort of experience get less and you don't sit in the muck where you have to clear. So when you're clearing energies, there you may feel sick to your stomach. You might have a little bit of diarrhea. You might feel it's got to purge out somehow. And I just find
it's also because it's unfamiliar to your body.
Yeah.
So your body's freaking out and doing the fear stuff at the body elemental level. Yeah.
And this is where that blending, right? Your emotional body, mental body, physical body. And again, it's really hard to explain to people, but except encouraging them to keep moving with the tools to get to that place. Because when you take your breath and it rolls from like breathing into your third eye crown, down your spine and up, around, and away we go, where we are locked in and tapping into our highest guidance and having this magical life. And it really is in a breath. It's not something that is over here, separate from us, within us.
Yes. And it's like understanding that no matter how far we go, there's always some more we can do. There's always more we can raise our energy. So it's an opportunity. Yeah.
Jackie is just sharing, that teenager example is very clear and helpful. And I wanted just to share, Heidi was the person I was thinking of earlier. She had shared on social media when I was promoting the show how excited she was about you being here, because your book, Waking Up in 5D, was a very important part of her journey.
Thank you. Thank you. I spent 7 years writing that book.
Really? Did it channel?
Yeah. No. Well, it might it might be partially, there's definitely channeled messages in there. And certainly a lot of the information in it came through my guidance. And what I was doing is testing it with my clients, because they didn't want to just put something out there that it was something Maureen St.Germain thought was so. And so I would test it with my people, and I would get wonderful feedback, which is why there's so much good feedback in Waking Up in 5D. There's in all the books like that, people sharing their experiences. And I've been very fortunate to have, like you do, a group that I can work with that wants to be part of the transformation of the planet and of themselves and are willing to do this work. So
you had shared earlier about Merkaba. Could you, for people that may not be aware of what that is, could you give us a little insight into that?
Okay,
please.
So this is a shape that's known as the Merkaba, and it's a representation of a geometric shape around the body. So you'd have a giant one of these, starting above your head and going below your feet. And it's really two tetrahedrons, and it fills a square. So if you look at it a certain way, you can see it as a square. And a tetrahedron is a three-sided pyramid with a base. You can't really see this one. Anyway, so the shape itself is a very important shape in terms of creation, and it represents part of the divine codes of creation. And what we do with that meditation is we literally learn how it fits around the body, and then we learn how to create three versions of this, one on top of the other in the same space, and one spins one way, one spins another way, and one remains stationary. And they're literally your physical body that doesn't move, your mental body that moves to the left, and your emotional body that moves to the right. There are people who are spinning the top and bottom of this separately, and that's a big no-no. So the energy, there's codes that we call out, and we spend some time teaching the codes, helping people grasp the sacred geometry behind it. Because once you get the geometry, you never have to learn it again. It's in your consciousness, it's in your outer awareness, and it's all the way in the inner awareness. So then when you intend to, you set in motion a spinning field that kind of looks like a flying saucer. And the energy is visible to some people, but the most important thing is it takes you from who you are to your optimal person. I remember when I first turned on the Merkaba and started working with it, I realized that the first 20 years of my spiritual path had just doubled in an instant. So the number one reason to do the Merkaba is it elevates you and helps you stay elevated. Excuse me. Excuse me. So the Merkaba is a 17 breath meditation. And in Living Your Best 5D Life, there is an 8D Merkaba in here. And it's so powerful that I want people to manufacture or make this shape so that, again, this shape is in their consciousness.
Right.
And this is what an 8D Merkaba looks like. So I think I'm going to paint this a color so it jumps out for people. Anyway, when you make something like this from scratch, and by the way, the instructions are in the appendix.
They are very detailed right at the end.
You get, your consciousness gets it. At one point when I was teaching a class and one woman said something about, well, this is, this in a kind of dismissive way, something about it being an art project. And I looked at her, I said, this is not an art project. This is a spiritual experience. And I didn't think of it. My guide said, make people make it. Now, I imagine after, a few million people or a few thousand people have made this, maybe people can access this energy without that. But this is so powerful and so new in the reality that it's important for people to manufacture it. And the cool thing is, it's all made from the phi ratio. And I believe the phi ratio is source code. And the phi ratio is the distance in the body from your little finger to the base of your wrist, or from your palm to your elbow. And once you learn the phi ratio, it's everywhere. It's in plants, it's in the star systems, it's in the relationship between Mercury and Venus and the sun. And so you start to see it everywhere, and you begin to realize this is source code.
Source code was on my pages to talk to you about for you to talk about source code. Sorry, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, source code in my world is the phi ratio, which is 1.618. And what I want to do is share with you this idea that source code is everywhere once you start to look. And if you can give me 1 second, I'm going to go into a closet and pull out a tool that demonstrates that. Can I do that?
Of course you can.
Okay. I didn't think about this for this call, but I think it's the right thing.
I feel like a little kid.
Okay, this tool is called a calipers. And I have two of them. I have a big one like this, and I have a little one. But I'm using the big one because you can't miss it. So if you measure from the bottom of the face to the top of the face, okay, you will see this marks where my third eye is. So then as you look at it, the smaller number here, the smaller distance is 1, and this is 1.618. Then if we measure the hand, we get the same thing. So I'm going to make this match my little finger to the base of my little finger. And then it shows exactly, let me get this right. So here we go. Okay. Can you see where my wrist bone is?
Yeah.
And if we go to the elbow, let's see how we do. Now, in this case, because it's a bigger one, it's actually a little more accurate when it's on a bigger shape. So we take it to can you see that?
Yeah.
It's very easy to see. So then when we look at it, we're looking at this being 1, or my hand length being 1, and the whole distance being in phi to this other number. So this is a tool that shrinks and expands to show this relationship of 1.618. And there's so much to say about this sacred geometry.
It's very synchronistic that you're sharing that today too, because I think it was 2 days ago I saw a TikTok reel came up on my news feed, and it was a woman doing yoga, and I'm watching her, but I had the sound shut off because I was trying to write. I just wanted the visual kind of off to the side, but I didn't want the sound. And I noticed what she was doing, and she had her hands at a certain distance apart, and then she put her feet up and she moved them a certain way. And I'm like, I got tingles from head to toe because I understood what she was trying to show, and it was the distance. So then I clicked the sound so that we could hear her talk. And that's what she was talking about, the ratios of the, because it's with your feet and
right. the body.
And if you understand the distance you're going, your posture is different. How you receive energy will be different. How you everything will change if you understand those codes.
Right. Pretty amazing.
It is.
So the relationship of phi is so important. And in one of my books, I even show how you can use it for manifestation. And in my school, I have a course where I talk about the relationship of Phi to plants and animals and everything. And there's also a piece that I was able to prove mathematically who Mary Magdalene was because of the Phi ratio.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I have always been very pulled to her. Anything to do with Mary Magdalene, I have been very pulled to.
Yeah, it's very amazing. She it's very complex. I'm sure we don't have time for this, but the course does explain that. And I do have a blog that I've written about Mary Magdalene. I usually publish it around her feast day, which is July 22nd. And I'll give you a big hint. July 22nd is written 22/7 in Europe. Now, most people who were raised in Europe know what 22/7 is used for. Do you?
Mm-mm.
It's another expression of pi, 3.14. And pi is the relationship of a circle and its radius. It's either pi r squared or 2 pi r, depending whether you're measuring the circumference or the area of a circle. We all have heard the term pi. We all kind of know what it means. And we know that we need that in order to figure out these other things about a circle. And so there's a direct correlation between Mary Magdalene and her feast day being 22/7. And I know that the people who picked the feast days knew who she was, which is why they gave her 22/7.
Oh,
And then I go into
chills.
the mathematics of how it's related to the vesica, which is the shape where two circles intersect, that middle section, like an almond shape. And I explain how this, it's like a bullseye.
You have
Shows
that
us
on.
exactly.
Is the blog on the website? Your website?
Yeah.
Okay, ladies.
So if you look up Mary
Laura Lee
Magdalene,
Potvin, Heidi Gold, Mary Jo Peach, Contessa, all of you who are commenting that you are pulled to Mary Magdalene, we're all going to head over and then we can have a steady chat about it later.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. And if you need me to show up and help sort that out, I'd be happy to. It's so exciting. And I've read lots and lots of stuff about what other teachers are saying about sacred geometry, but nobody has ever come up with this. And I think part of it's because I don't look at things the way everybody else does. Sometimes it gets me into trouble, but at the same time, it gives me the opportunity. They say that a renegade mathematician or a renegade scientist actually has a greater chance of inventing something than somebody who's fit the mold and stayed within the narrow band of what they were taught.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we have to step
to discover.
We have to step outside. Heidi is just sharing, I have your website up already, Maureen. Laura Lee is saying, oh, awesome. Oh my goodness. I love this. Contessa's sharing she wears the Mary Magdalene medal. These are just some of the comments. Heidi's saying the same thing, goosebumps as well too. Joanne, thank you for being here. She's just saying that she's here from London, Ontario. Yeah, the divine codes, that was something that I had written down. And I'm so glad that you brought up Mary Magdalene. That was, and do you find, again, synchronistic? There are so many of us in the chat who are pulled to her. And then for that to come up, it really, when you allow yourself to be in this space, everything becomes magical. All the right things at the right time present in the right way.
I agree. So we, I'll have to find that link. I'm looking on my website now and I'm not seeing that particular post, but it should be there.
I had wrote down another question, if it's okay for me to ask while you're looking. Is that okay? And it's still around sacred geometry too, which Laura Lee is commenting about in the chat. But I wanted to ask about sacred geometry and sacred sites or sacred
Okay.
locations. Do
Okay.
they do those line up as well too? Like longitude, latitude, do
Mhm.
they line up in some way? All those sacred sites in the same way?
Yes, yes, they do, and
Is
it
that why
goes
it's
even
important
deeper.
to pilgrimage to those places?
Mhm.
Could you share some of
Well,
that? I have never been
it's
to any of them.
ha ha ha. Well, what I can tell you is when you visit those sites, you can be activated, and the activation allows you to step into a higher frequency, and it helps you hold a higher space for yourself and others around you. And then your presence links you to the other versions of you that may have participated in
Oh,
the life of Mary Magdalene at that time. So you're building a lineage that feels really direct. And that's why people have these amazing experiences
I
in,
understand better now. I didn't
yeah.
understand why people were pulled to those places. Like I
Mm,
do beauty of it and history, but I didn't understand what the personal experience would be.
mhm, mhm.
That changes my
Yeah, it's pretty
perspective on it.
amazing. Really amazing.
Because even if you were doing your breathing, different breathing techniques or sound, that would also amplify the experience on top of that.
Hmm. Exactly so.
But
Exactly so.
I'm 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 probably just going to step in a big pile of poo in what I'm about to say, but I guess if everybody's going, you're all going with the same intention. Sometimes personalities and intentions don't line up. So, going in a group, I would kind of hold my breath and hope that everybody's, I guess you're setting the intention that all the right people would be there, that would be in the supportive way.
Well, it's funny that you say that because that's something I actually call upon people to do. And I ask them to pray that they come into alignment and that they attract people that they need to be working with, and that the people that show up are their spiritual siblings, and that it's incumbent upon each of us and, every situation to congeal and be of service to one another as we evolve and shift. Because as if we step into that place of power where we're in agreement that we want to have the highest experience possible, and we're willing to hold that space not only for ourselves but for everybody else, that's what happens.
Yeah. So
And I
then
actually ask people to do a prayer every single day as part of their sacred journey in this work. Mhm.
so who we come in contact with and who we have contracts with.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
gotcha. I'm just going to share some of these. Everybody's very excited. Maureen, I downloaded the app 15 minutes ago. They're downloading the Illuminate app, which is
Nice.
exciting. Michelle is just sharing, growing up Catholic, I chose Mary Magdalene as my confirmation name. My newer, Laura Lee is sharing my newer friend, Chimondongo, was mentioning to me about some of the work Maureen St.Germain and how highly he thinks of you. And I definitely
Oh,
concur with his expressed sentiments.
thank you.
Heidi is sharing, I've often thought that too about people aligning with intention set.
Hmm. Yeah. So when we start to gather, it's so amazing how we get people who are unfamiliar with each other but suddenly become friends. Like one year when I took a group to Egypt, this is such a great story, and I think I told it in the book Mastering Your 5D Self, the middle book of the three. And I had two men who had been born in Japan. One was tall and bulky, kind of like a football player shape, and he was from that kind of body shape in Tokyo, and the other man was smallish, but he also was born in Tokyo. One man lived in New York and the other man lived in Seattle. They both had studied with me when I was in those cities. They both decided to come on the same trip because they were both Japanese heritage. I put them together, but I knew they were the same soul, the same soul. But I never said it to them. I never said, I put you guys together because I think you have something in common and that you have the same soul. Instead, I just put them together and they came to me. They knew my teaching about multiple versions of you, multiple versions of each of us, and how you can meet another version of you, and that person steps in and is a help to you. They belong in your soul family. They're part of your soul tribe. And sometimes they're there and give you, uplift. And sometimes they're there for a short while. Sometimes they're there for a longer period. And it was so exciting to me that they came to me and said, we figured out we were the same soul.
It is exciting and joyful. Like you can feel your own heart expand watching somebody else have their aha moments.
Exactly. And, this is one of the things that I feel very strongly about. When I work with people, I set them up to have those aha moments. And then when the record keepers tell them something, or they learn in the Akashic Record something, they can say to themselves, yeah, I got that. If I tell them first, then they might say to themselves, well, the reason I got that is because Maureen told me. So I'm always I'll kind of play, a little cat and mouse game in the coursework that I teach, so that people will come to these conclusions of their own volition. And then when they get the confirmation, it's validating. Very
validating. And I feel it's not the tool giving is my job. The tool giving is my job. And then
the rest is up to them.
Yeah, cheerleader. I say my next job is cheerleader. My next role is to be the cheerleader off to the side, right? And
I like it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and because I find people may come feeling that there's an imbalance, and there isn't. There's not an imbalance.
They come to you because they feel or see an imbalance, that you have an energy or a vibe that they'd like to have, and that's important. But your observation is very valid, because you may come in as their coach, but as soon as they get it, you become their cheerleader. Yeah.
And I tell everyone
that's tricky for people, to be an instructor or teacher and then shift to being the cheerleader. And I actually use those phrases when people say, well, my 20-something son or daughter, or my 30-something, and I'll say, you're done with the mom duty at about age 15 or 16, and you have to move into cheerleader mode. And it's really hard as a parent, because sometimes you still have little ones that are coming along, and the older ones are, okay, now we got to cheerleader those guys. But at the end of the day, the thing that I know about families is, when we support our offspring, even if they reject us to start with, they will come back.
It's very true. I was a single parent forever, single parented my kiddos. And we've had quite a journey that we're all grateful for and very humbled by. But I used to tell them all the time, my job is to facilitate independence so that you are okay to go. You are not mine. I don't own you. I do not control you.
I'm the caretaker.
Yeah, we are here to learn from each other too. I'm learning as I go. You're learning from me. It's a give and receive for both of us, right? And over many different lifetimes, and in different roles. So, and I think the only other one that really used to irritate them is, I would say, your soul chose me. How are you liking that choice right now? You chose me. How are you liking this?
That's really funny. I found myself saying one time to my youngest, look, you were the dad last time. I'm
Mm.
still the mom here. You can quit being my dad any minute now,
Yeah.
And I heard a funny story from going back to the Casey material. There's a very famous couple, Gladys McGarry, who's a medical doctor, and her husband. He has since passed, but she's still living. She's in her 90s. And when they were raising their 2 children, at one point, it was a similar story like you just said. And Gladys said to the little boy, you chose this family. And it was like, get over it kind of a thing. And the little boy shot back, yeah, but I didn't know she was coming when I decided to come.
Oh my gosh. When my kids, I think they were just little, because Brooke, my fourth guy, my fourth baby, wasn't here at that time. And I think my oldest would have been 4 or 5. And he said, I think I liked it better when you were the other mom and you looked this way. And Ryan wasn't here at that point. Like, and he was totally talking about a different lifetime, that he liked that lifetime better
Love
than
it.
what we were at. And they put zingers out like that all the time, which was a helpful reminder to me and why I was like, what my purpose was and what I needed to do. Mm-hmm. Right. They were the ones that pushed me along.
Yeah,
I wanted
totally
to share some of this. Joanne is just sharing sage on the stage, then guide on the side. I had never heard
You're so cute. You're a poet. Joanne, you're a poet.
That's awesome. Heidi's saying so true, cheerleader for them.
Yeah, it's really, I remember when I went back to work, I had been home with my kids and I went back to work when the youngest was maybe 5 or 4. And actually, yeah, that's about right. Anyway, I would come home and I couldn't figure out why there was so much dysfunction. And in meditation, I was told by my guides, you took off your mom hat and you never put it back on. Mm. Because I was like an earth mother before. And then when I went in the corporate world, I was Mrs. Corporate. And I came home wearing my corporate hat, my corporate uniform, and expecting everybody to fall in line. It's hilarious.
And they push back.
What was that?
And they push back. Like kids don't recognize that energy anymore, right? They don't know how to be in it.
It was chaos and a mess, and you name it. It was a problem.
I'm just going to take a second to do our station ID because I think I'm a little past when I was supposed to do that. So if you are just joining us now, thank you for being here. You are listening to Spirit Switchboard. I'm your host, Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM out of New Orleans. And today's guest is Maureen J. St.Germain, here to talk about ascension, transformation, and her new book, Living Your Best 5D Life, Timeless Tools to Achieve and Maintain Your New Reality. And that's really what it's, that concept of it being your reality, shifting your reality, and that you can do that you are that, I always have a weird, maybe it's something that I'm going to have to sit with to figure out why. But the word powerful is always kind of, I don't know, feels weird to me, but it is. We're powerful beings that are connected and can create a magical life for ourselves. But when I hear that word powerful, I don't know, it triggers something. I have to sit with it, I guess.
Well, we are all powerful beings, and it may be that the programming beaming at us says you're not powerful. So that's why you feel this this like, oh, what's going on? I'm called to share the words of Sanat Kumara that came through me a couple of years ago. And he said, the game is over, referring to the 3D game.
Wow.
And then he said, the game will end when there are no more players. And how many times have we heard our kids playing games and it's the game is over, no more players, or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so the game is over when there are no more players. Will you be the first to leave or the last?
Mm.
And that, I find that so yummy because it's so easy to get it at that point. Oh, well, if the old way of doing things, you know, strife, egotism, selfishness, you know, all of it is part of the old game, and all I have to do is
Well, do you, have you? I don't know. I don't know if it's a thing, or if I'm just placing attention on it. People choosing to not play the game at all and opt out. Like, are they opting out, or do they need to leave to help hold space somewhere else? Like, there's a lot of people that are passing away weirdly and just drop.
yeah. I think a lot of people are so convinced at a very deep level that this version of the reality is all there is, that the possibility of another version of the reality is so frightening, so much cognitive dissonance, that rather than try and cope, they just opt out, as you say.
Yeah.
And then there's other reasons people leave. You know, there's an awful lot of what I would call volunteers who have gotten caught up in various situations, you know, the weather issues and things like that, where they elected to be part of that, not as like a death wish, but just I can do this kind of a thing. So the choosing is really important. And when we say to ourselves, I choose XYZ, I choose to be alive and part of the solution in the transformation of humanity, that tells the universe you're in the new game, and you're ready and willing to participate. And the biggest issue that I think people have is changing their mind, you know, changing your mind about everything, you know. And I love to tell a story about, you know, 10 or 15 years ago, I asked my guides what I was doing in my own world that would keep me from being fifth dimensional all the time. And I said, well, is there anything that I'm, you know, consistently doing that would sabotage me? And they said, yes. I did not want to get a yes, but I got a yes. And they said, when you drive in San Diego traffic, and you can imagine, you know, somebody did something I didn't like, it, well, that guy's an idiot. Or, you know, what do they think they're doing? Or didn't they see me? You know, the attitude kind of thing. And so once they pointed that out to me, I thought, well, I got to fix that. So I chose to make it a game. And I would start to make up stories about the drivers that used to tick me off. And I would say, well, they probably have someplace important to go, probably more important than mine. You know, who am I to stand in their way? Or, you know, it's probably somebody who didn't even see me. You know, they're preoccupied. Maybe their mother died. You know, I came up with all these funny stories. And pretty soon I'm laughing to myself about the drivers who didn't live up to, quote, my standard.
Right.
And that level of arrogance just kind of melted away. And the thing that I discovered is I didn't know I was doing it. I didn't know that that was standing in the way of my being my best self, because I was not being heard by anybody else. I'm in the car by myself. What's the big deal? Who cares? And the answer is, well, I'm setting it up. I'm setting the stage. Exactly. I love this, Heidi. You're doing scenarios too. That's great. It makes it much nicer and joyful. So,
I appreciate you sharing that story, because I may horrify you with mine because it's same thing with driving. But I when the kids were small, again, a chip on my shoulder being a single parent and doing all of these things. And definitely that chip was huge for a long time. And I would get scared because I was responsible for these like wee people that were in my vehicle. So when those sort of moments would happen, but I did it forgiveness with an edge, I guess. I forgive you for being an a-hole and doing that, and I forgive myself for calling you an a-hole. Please let the karma be clear.
Oh, that's hilarious. Obviously, you didn't quite make it. Yeah, yeah. You came in second on that marathon, Catherine.
Okay, I will do better.
Yeah.
Know better, do better.
Well, one of my friends said to me, it's a form of diversion when we do stuff like that. We're diverting blame and we're diverting responsibility. And when we create space around ourselves and around our car, stuff like that doesn't happen. So it does fall back on us.
100% does. Like I don't know if you know Canadian, I'm in Canadian geography much at all, but I'm outside of Toronto in Ontario, and grew up in northern Ontario, so 9 hours north. And when I started I've been doing this work full time, it'll be almost 18 years now, full time. And I understand that trust. Like I used to do hair. So when I kept getting that push from Spirit, it was, I'm willing to be of service for Spirit, but I need to be able to provide for my children and meet our needs. So, you presented, I will step into it. And it was really scary. And I feel for people, it's letting go, not just of perceived fears, but projected fears. The projected fears of family, or the projected fears of, the friends who, their own fears get projected out. So you listen to them more. But I used to drive all over the place. Anyway, it's a lot. And it was like a snowstorm. And I know, because I was scared, and I took that breath and I said, I know that I will get where I need to go safely, because I have this role that I need to play. And I'm asking for my angels to step in and support. And you could see and feel them, and they were moving my vehicle. It was like I didn't even have to have my hand on the wheel. And they just, awesome. I have so many stories like that of trust, and it is a magical place when you put those tools in. It's our birthright. And I think that people don't understand that.
It's true. Yes, we are many times blessed. And when we stay in that state of gratitude, it's what makes the difference. We become fearless, and we become untouchable, and we become fifth dimensional. And there's a thing called the God jar. Have you heard of this? It's like a cookie jar. I like to have it in glass so you can see through it. And you write things that you're worried about in the affirmative.
When my kids were small, we called it the God box. So we made the God box, but I was not very good about leaving it there at that time. I would try to take control back. It took me a while. It took me a while to leave it.
That's funny.
It took me a while. And again, my children. Honestly, I 100% believe, and I'm so grateful that my children chose me this go round, because they really, at very young ages, pushed me to remember connections, especially my youngest one. When I would worry about money, there's no need to really, but when I was in that place of fear mode, it would hurt through my lower back. My back would hurt, and it was always where those money worries were storing up. And he was three. 3. And he's like, I fix it for you. And he would rub his little fingers and hands together and he would put them on my back. And you could feel that energy moving through him. And I said, what are you doing, dude? He's like, I'm giving it to Archangel Michael. He take it away. And I'm like, okay. Like, we're just gonna roll with this. Like,
Nice.
Why did you choose me? And he's like, because you got work to do. So it's magical. It is magical, folks, when you step into just allowing and taking the ownership, right? And again, I come back to that because you start to see, I think it moves into forgiveness, giving yourself forgiveness for those places where you chose a path that didn't allow you to express yourself authentically, or where you were not living authentically, where you gave your power away. And forgiveness is a very big part of this journey as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. And there are layers of forgiveness. And you were at like the first layer when you'd say, well, I forgive this person for beginning. And then we get to the place where we go, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. And it's also okay to have boundaries. And boundaries do not mean you don't forgive. It simply means you're protecting and holding your space.
Mm-hmm. And forgiveness can be challenging if you're looking at it as in the 3D place and not looking at it from the 5D place, because with forgiveness it's almost like having your higher self have a conversation with their higher self, because for some people you are not ever going to be able to have closure or a rational conversation with.
Yeah, and that's disquieting to know that this, the opportunity, but what I have found works, because you're absolutely right. There are people that you will never be able to have a rational conversation with because they're in a place of such self-protection. They can't hear you. They can't understand you. And I just write a letter and then burn it and ask the angels to take care of the details. If they need to know it, that they feel it, they understand it. And if they don't, then I've let go.
Yeah. And remembering they're playing a role for us and the people around. They're just playing it so well, they forget that they come from the same place of source as we do.
Right.
Like, it's
right.
So it helps us have gratitude for that, which can be very challenging as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to, where did I want to go? I had so many little 3D marks. Heidi is just sharing, I told my kids that forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean to forget, but for the peace within your soul. That's beautiful too. And that's exactly what it is.
Well, think about this. I was taught by my guides that forgiveness is no longer required. And with my own children, instead of making them say, I'm sorry, we've all seen parents say to their kids, say you're sorry. And the child digs in. No, say you're sorry. And they hang their head, they dig their feet in, and they're not budging. And I taught my children to say, are you okay? Because it empowers them to ask a real question that is meaningful. It gives the person who may have been injured a chance to say, no, you stepped on my toe and it still hurts. And then it gives the perpetrator the opportunity to experience that person's feeling about what happened so that they can choose the next time.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So,
Michelle,
you have little ones, you don't have to tell them to say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Tell them, are you okay? And that changes everything. And as adults, especially people we're close to, when people come to me and oh, I'm so sorry, XYZ, I look at them and say, you don't have to apologize. What I care about is that we take steps so it doesn't happen again. But even that, we can't always control. But it's okay. You don't need to say you're sorry. It's just how it is.
Heidi is just sharing that she.
Excuse me.
No, that's okay. She's just saying, love that, Maureen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Alchemy of energy. Thank you. That's a lovely compliment.
I grew up just outside of Cleveland, and my parents often went to Leamington. And so I know Toronto a little bit. And, it's really a very close drive for us from the Cleveland area. So, yeah.
Alchemy of energy is just sharing. I agree 100% right now. I'm currently doing my best to stop saying sorry and express things in other ways. The word sorry is such a low vibration.
And the thing about sorry is it creates a disparity. The person who was injured is here, and the person who was saying they're sorry is down here now. And they have to grovel to this person. So that's another reason why we don't want to do that. We don't want to teach our children to do that. We want to teach them that we're all in the same boat together and that stuff happens. And not having to say you're sorry doesn't mean you aren't a causer of discomfort or pain with someone. It simply means that she is still equal to the other person. It's not less than.
Can we segue just, maybe it's not even, that's not a segue. We're just going to leap to a different direction for a second. But as more people raise their vibrational level and come up to that space or vibrate at that 5D level, has it allowed, or have you noticed that it's allowed for us to experience elemental guides in a different way? I'm totally going to dragons because I know that I have one for a long time. That dragon has been with me, and I've worked with that dragon. Grateful that dragon gave me their name, which I keep to myself. But I have that experience. So would you mind sharing?
Sure, I'd love to talk
about your thoughts into that.
Yeah, I put a whole chapter in the book Waking Up in 5D on dragons. It was really important because the dragons were back in embodiment. They'd been back maybe 4 or 5 years when that book was published. And I started experiencing them, and I started asking questions. And what I discovered is the dragons were revered at one time in our history, in our Western history. And living in New York City, I was at the Fort Tryon Museum, which is way in northern Manhattan. And there's a tapestry there. It's in the book, a picture of the tapestry. And the tapestry was hanging in a monastery, and it's a big tapestry of a dragon. And the obvious conclusion is the monastery would not have an enemy picture or weaving hanging in their monastery. They would have something that they revered. So the dragons were revered by everybody at one time. But the dragons stand for clarity and truthfulness. They stand for getting it right the first time. They stand for making the way straight. They're also helpful with publishing and getting the word out. So if the story of who we are, if the story of our world got changed to suit the powers that be, they wouldn't want the dragons around. They wouldn't want the dragons to help you and I figure it out.
For the truth
so
sayers.
They were slaughtered en masse, and they were taken out big time, to the point where they moved back into the etheric. So even though they're not physical at this time, They are now fully present in the physical, and they're fully present in the etheric. And anybody
I
can
said
call
that wrong then. They were not elementals. They're
They are
dimensional.
elementals. They are
Okay.
elementals.
Okay.
They are a different breed of elementals. The
Okay.
elementals from earth, air, fire, and water, the undines, the sylphs, the
Yeah.
air elementals are all part of the bigger system of earth, air, fire, and water. They are the in manifestation expressions of the personifications of these energies. But the dragons are elementals, but they have free will. So that's the big differential.
Okay.
So the dragons have free will, which is why when they give you their name, they are literally saying, I'm your dragon. You're my human. And that's why I tell people don't share the name, because it's like sharing the keys to your car. You just don't do it. So the dragons started coming back, and they were given full license to come back and help humanity, because we are at the stage where we are literally finding out the truth about everything. And because we're finding out the truth, the dragons are helping us to notice when something isn't true and to help us find our way through that. So their presence helps us to see clearly.
Mm.
So having a dragon to assist you is fabulous. And you don't have to limit yourself to one. You may ask, can I have more? And you might attract more. And they will give you their names, like you said, but you don't share it with anybody. And, in the book, I talk about a chiropractor friend of mine, a very dark-skinned American born in Jamaica, and he was down on his luck. And he was telling me his story, and he was sitting in my kitchen. And I said, well, everybody can call in their dragons. Why don't you call in your dragon? He wasn't really thinking that he could believe in that. And I walked away. I just left the room. And when I came back, he was crying. And he said, I saw my dragon. She's white with beautiful feathers, and she's iridescent.
Mm.
And I thought that was so poetic that he would attract a white dragon. And what I want people to understand is the dragon's mission at this time is to help humanity level up and to help us all find the truth, help us all be the best we can be, to help us with our life and how we can co-create in the reality at the highest level. And the dragons are here to steady us, literally to steady us on our path.
It's amazing. And again, so all these, Laura Lee is saying, I adore dragons and definitely work with them often. Heidi is sharing dragons. I don't tell anyone this, but now you are in a large way. I don't tell anyone this, but I've seen them for years now. I believe they live in between the snow-topped Rocky Mountains and the Flatirons.
Nice.
And she's saying, resonating with those words.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, it's such a yummy thing. And
it surprised me when it happened, actually. I was very humbled by it. Because
sometimes they come down and out. Were you down and out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so much so. The accountant said to me that I was the poorest person he knew. I was the single mom with these 4 kids, and the accountant said, you are the poorest person I know. I'm like, awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There were times. Yeah, at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another thing. You can ask your dragons, those of you who are listening, no matter what you do, ask them to help you with your work. Ask them to help you bring more clients. Ask them to help you bring in more of whatever it is you need. I don't know what I need, but you guys have a better picture because you're, looking down on me. Bring me more of what I need. Help me step up. I'm thinking about asking the dragons to help me a little more with exercise.
But I don't like sweating. If I'd be willing to do that too if I don't have to get sweaty. That's bad. I don't know. Is there a payoff somehow with that? I don't know.
Say it again.
I guess that's just part of the parcel. Find ways for me to be okay with it, so I can achieve the result.
There you go. There you go.
Because it is how we choose our words and our intentions behind them. All of that matters so much. Because I find people ask for something less because they're still working through that worthiness, right? So I always encourage people to say this or something greater.
Me too.
Most benevolent, right? Most benevolent outcome even.
Right. And one of the ways that we can deal with it is there's a lovely guided meditation. I had a client who was so down and out, probably like when you were your poorest self. And she went to buy diapers and didn't have enough money in her account, and she had to return them. She couldn't check out with the diapers. And you can, as a parent, you'd be mortified. And I was there to see her, and she started telling me all these things, and I said, "Well, let's make a list." So we came up with 30 things of what she was upset about in her life. I'm afraid I'm not going to amount to anything. I'm afraid I'm going to be an old, poor old lady. On and on and on. So she got all done, and I went home. And the next day she sent me a text. And I thought of a few more. Oh, so one of the benefit of writing down all your fears that you're afraid this is going to happen, this is going to happen, is that it clears the field. And then any hidden ones, or ones that were hiding in the background, come up, which is good. So then what I did is I wrote positive statements to antidote every one of her fears. And then I put it into a guided meditation. And that guided meditation is called Make Your Year a Good One. And there's a great story about this young woman after she got this meditation from me and she started working with it. In New York City, her husband, who was a reporter at the time, had his iPad stolen. And it's a great story because she got it back in New York City.
Wow. Eh?
So that's the intro that, kind of sets you up to show how powerful it is. And it's called Make Your Year a Good One. And it's full of wonderful statements. And one of them is, I am a woman of substance. And what I do matters in the world.
Lovely.
So, if you're feeling a little down, that's a meditation for you. It's really powerful.
And that's on the Illuminate app?
Yeah.
And with the Illuminate, there's so many that are for free?
Yeah. The Illuminate app has 7 guided meditations that are free. The one we just talked about is not a free one, but there are free ones, like there's a free one for prayer before surgery. I won Best of Show, a Best CD of the Year. And that meditation was called Golden Bowl. And it's a way to open up your channel to your higher self. And it activates this energy that sits around the body. And it's the sinus cavities. And I had an aha, and I came across a piece of scripture that explained it a little bit. And I put it together with what I'd been seeing. And in the process, I named it the Golden Bowl, and then that won an award. And so that one's free. And I put this high ranking, best meditation on the free so that people would really get it, that this that this is so important to me, that you get these skills going, that you get your gifts going. It's more important than me, making money. And each time I hear from people, we have pages and pages of feedback from people who use this meditation and had remarkable experiences. So that's a freebie. And so there's no reason to not download the app and at least use that one.
And it also shows like that there is enough, there's plenty, there's enough for everyone. There's always going to be more coming in. We just have to trust. And I am proof of that as well too. Like, we literally were sleeping in our van. We were homeless for 2 years. Like, it was a lot. And when it was I always use this word, and I guess that's my choice for me and our journey, but was to take a personal accountability of my healing, mind, body, spirit, and get everything into alignment. And then once I saw it working, even with my kiddos, if they would start to get negative or down, I would make them stop and pause. What will it feel like when we're in that place of flow? What will it feel like when we're in that place of abundance in all forms? And it's magical watching my children manifest their lives now as adults, and the things that they step into fearlessly. And I think for me too, very much like the forgiveness thing, when I started doing this, it was with a chip on my shoulder. It was more, I'm going to show everybody that I can do this. And my goal was to put my kids through school with no debt, that they would have this start with no debt. And I did that.
Fantastic. Congratulations. That's a biggie.
It is a
biggie. I did the same thing. Fortunately, one of them was in the military, so I didn't have to cover him, but everyone else I chose to cover. Yeah. It's a big deal.
And it was with that understanding of awareness and growth and expansion, that if I was sharing from my heart space unconditionally, being of service, my needs are always going to be met so that I could be more of service. And that's how it rolls. Like, it's
so true.
A beautiful trusting relationship with my higher self and the divine.
Yeah, it's true. It's quite amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite amazing.
Laura Lee is just sharing, Maureen, what a wonderful gift you've been to all of us in so many ways. And I thank you so much for all that you've shared today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my honor, truly. My honor. I, like you, Carolyn, I was so broke that I was $60,000 in debt. And people told me I should file bankruptcy. And I didn't want to, because I knew I would be teaching manifestation. And I felt that would be a black mark on my
resume.
Yeah, my resume, on my credentials. And so I paid it all off. And my first husband filed bankruptcy before our divorce was final, which caused all of our family debt to fall on me, because he named me as one of his creditors. So he walked away with no debt, and I took on the big family debt. It took me 7 years, but I paid it off. And then I proceeded to go into debt again when I started working for myself, doing what you and I are doing now.
Yeah.
And when I moved to New York, I was another $60,000 in debt. And when I sold my house, I thought that was my nest egg or my retirement. And it cost me $10,000 to close the deal. I had to pay the buyer $10,000 because of, just a series of things that went down, which I don't need to get into. And so I started out with, this big debt. And once again, there was temptation to file bankruptcy. And by the way, there's no shame in filing bankruptcy. But in my case, I wanted to teach manifestation. And I felt very strongly that if I really believed in manifestation, I didn't have to file bankruptcy. I'd be able to do it. And I did. It only took 5 years the second time.
Right.
And the thing that I will say is, once I got in the groove, as you described for yourself, It was easy. It was easy. And there was a time when I wasn't sure how I was going to come up with the extra $10,000 a year that was required for my son's tuition. And he had scholarship money for everything else, but I was expected to pay $10K. And the first semester, I managed to scrape up the $5K before the end of the semester so he could register. And then the second year, the IRS decided to take the money that I had paid in advance and was counting on to pay for second semester. It's going to get a refund and cover the financial obligation. They applied it to my ex-husband's bill. Even though we weren't married and they had no right to do that, but they did. Fortunately, he chose to pay me back, but I had a big freak out until that happened, until he stepped up and said, no, I'm going to cover that. And then the third year, I just didn't have it. And I couldn't pay the fall semester. And I said to my son, I don't have enough money. I can't cover the fall semester. And he said to me, I'll just go back to school and show up for the classes I want. And when you get the money, go ahead and pay it and let me know. And then I'll register. So it was 6 weeks before I finally had enough money to pay off fall. And he's already 6 weeks into the second semester.
Wow.
And so when he tried to register, the school said, well, you can't register. It's too late, blah, blah, blah. And he said, no, my mom just didn't have the money. I've been attending class all along. And they said, okay, fine, but you're going to have to get a waiver for every one of your professors. And I remember him saying, I never want to do that again. But one of the things that I did the whole time is I had a picture. I couldn't figure out how to manifest it because I was so terrified that I would fail. So I finally figured out if I had a picture of him in his cap and gown, that would work. So I put a picture of him, his cap and gown from high school on my desk at work. And I would look at it many times during the day and I would pretend to speak to him. And I would say, there were some scary moments. That's validating my current, but it wasn't that hard.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
And I said that, hundreds of times. And then when we're on the lawn and the graduation's occurring, I said it the last time.
Amazing. And I think it's important for people to hear us being transparent so that they feel inspired too. Like, it doesn't matter how low we have the power within us and the connection to move that energy forward. And it starts with imagination too, right?
So a lot of that information is based on sacred geometry and how I did it. And I put it in this book called Be a Genie. It's one of the first books I wrote. And it's got it all in here. It's really a fun book.
So along the bottom, for everybody that's been watching, the StGermainMysterySchool.com. For our audio listeners, again, it is Maureen J. St.Germain, living your best 5D life at StGermainMysterySchool.com. It was published by Inner Traditions. You can also get it there. Amazon has it as well too. The
Barnes & Nobles and all the big box stores as well.
The app is called Illuminate for the meditations. So Google Play, all those places where you get your apps. Thank you. I just have to be mindful of our time. Jeffrey Pritchett is up next with his show, Church of Mavis. So thank you, everybody. Quick comments, everything the two of you said tonight. I understand you're both true to yourselves. Thank you again. Wow. Thank you. Learned so much tonight. Big thanks. Great show. Great show. Thank you. So inspired by you sharing your stories. Kale and Maureen, thank you so much. Thank you to all of the live listeners that participated, your questions and comments. You guys help carry the show and make it is what it is. And I'm very grateful for all of you. Thank you, Maureen, for coming on. It is an honor and a pleasure to be able to connect with you.
Thank you. And I wish each and every one of you a day or an evening of heaven on earth. And I did put in the chat the link to the history of Mary Magdalene and sacred geometry.
Yeah, so I put it on the chat as well too, and it went to like all the different platforms. So it went to everything that we're streaming from as well today. So thank you, everybody. If you tune in next week, I have Jason Kenzie coming on talking about his documentaries and experiences with Yeti, Sasquatch. And that will be a fun show as well, too. So have a good night, everybody. Have a good weekend. And I will see you all again next Friday. Bye.
Thank you.